say you should never leave the fire unattended, not because the night is cold, but because something else sits beside it, watching, waiting, listening for every creak of the floorboards. A keeper, a protector, a presence older than your bloodline and bound to it. If you hear that sound, don't answer. It might not be a person at all. It might be the Taram. Welcome back, witches and wanderers, to the Morbid Witch podcast, where folklore curls its fingers around the edges of our world. True crime leaves its bruised marks on history, and the supernatural is given just enough breath to whisper back. I'm your host, Kari, and tonight we're stepping into one of the most quietly haunted traditions in all of the North Caucasus. Because in Chechen and Ingush mythology, there is a spirit who sits not in the shadows of the wilderness, not in the ruins of old temples or haunted battlegrounds, but right at the heart of your home. He can be a protector, a guardian, a watchman, or a punisher, silently enforcing order on the living. Tonight we explore the Taram of the hearth, a household guardian spirit from Vainakh culture, mysterious, ancient, sometimes benevolent, and sometimes terrifying. So stoke the fire, close the door, and whatever you do, don't turn around too quickly. Before we meet the Taram, we first need to understand the people who called upon him, the Vainakh, which includes the Chechen and Ingush nations. These communities lived in the rugged forest slopes of the North Caucasus Mountains, a place of ancient settlements, towering cliffs, and sacred groves where the world feels thin, like the veil is stretched just a little too tight. Long before the arrival of Islam, before Christianity, before any written record, the Vainakh world was shaped by animism. A belief that every place, every stream, every glade, every ridge was inhabited by spirits. But unlike many cultures where household spirits are minor, the Vainakh relationship to the home was profound, almost cosmological. Because the hearth wasn't just a place to cook food, it was a portal, a living altar, a conduit between ancestors and the living. A spiritual center that defined the very identity of a family. At the heart of that fire lived a presence, the Taram, both a guardian spirit and a moral overseer, a being silent enough to forget until something reminds you he's still listening. The Taram is not a ghost, not a demon, not a deity. He is something stranger, a guardian spirit, a domestic ancestor, a watcher bound to blood and fire. Known throughout Chechen and Ingush folklore, the Taram is believed to inhabit the shadowed corners of the home, especially near the hearth or storage spaces. He is rarely seen directly. Instead, he is perceived through signs, unexplained footsteps, gentle knocking, objects moved from one spot to another, a sudden chill near the fire, livestock resting easier or falling ill, and the creak of a stool as if someone sat down when no one did. The Taram exists in a delicate balance. He rewards order, respect, and familial unity, but punishes chaos, neglect, or disrespect of the home. To anger him is to invite misfortune. To respect him is to welcome blessings. Descriptions vary on his appearance when he chooses to show himself, but the most common portrayal is this: a shadow-like man with elongated limbs, sometimes draped in fur or old garments, with eyes like glowing embers. Not monstrously shaped, but uncanny. Human, but not quite. Some tales say he can shrink to the size of a child, or stretch to fill a doorway. Some say he looks like a revered ancestor, a grandfather long past, watching quietly. Yet others describe him as a small, furred being, similar to the Slavic domovoi, but more solemn and less mischievous. To understand the Taram, you need to understand the rules of the Vainakh household. Rules older than memory, older than writing, older than the very beams of the family home. Rule 1 was to honor the fire. The hearth fire was kept burning for as long as possible. To let it die without cause was to break the spiritual chain between generations and risk angering the Taram. Rule 2, never kick the hearthstones. These stones formed the boundary of sacred fire. To kick them or disturb them intentionally was disrespecting the spirits. Rule 3, never raise your voice in the hearth room. Anger feeds darkness. Chaos disrupts balance. A household spirit thrives on harmony, not shouting. Rule 4 was to treat guests with respect. Hospitality is sacred in the Caucasus. A Taram is believed to punish those who mistreat guests or travelers. Rule 5. Offerings must be humble, but sincere. Bread, milk, butter. Occasionally incense or herbs. Small offerings made at night were said to strengthen the Taram's protection. Rule 6. Rule 6. Never sit in the Taram spot. Every home has a place near the fire, where no one sat. A shadowed corner, a low stool, a warm stone. It belonged to him. Vainakh families told countless stories of the Taram interacting with daily life. When he is pleased, he keeps wolves away from the livestock. He prevents sickness. He warns the family of impending dangers. He soothes crying children. He restores lost items. He ensures the house stays warm through the harsh winters. But when he is angered, milk spoils overnight, tools would vanish. Wolves would gather near the home. Doors slam during windless nights. The animals would refuse to enter their pens, and shadows would move with unnatural intent. But perhaps the most feared sign was when the Taram went silent entirely. No creaks, no knocks, no movement in the corners. Just absence. But when the Taram leaves, it means the home has already spiritually fallen. We've met the Taram of the hearth, the guardian within the walls, the watcher by the fire. But outside the threshold, beyond the gate, in the deep wilderness where the mountains swallow the sun, there is another Taram, older, wilder, and less forgiving. We journey into the forests and high passes of the Caucasus to meet the Lemnul Taran, a spirit who guards boundaries, haunts travelers, tests the brave, and reminds the living that some paths should never be walked alone. Vainakh cosmology is never simple. Spirits do not exist in a single form. They shift, adapt, and reveal themselves differently depending on where you stand and how deeply you listen. Tonight, we entered the other half of the legend. Taram is the liminal, wild, wandering guardian of thresholds, not merely a house spirit, but a border spirit. The edge where human order ends and old Nakh wilderness begins. To understand this version of Taram, You must picture the Caucasus Mountains, not as geography, but as belief. The massive stone ridges, the narrow passes, the dark forests. All of them were alive with presences older than language. Spirits who protected, spirits who punished, spirits who warned humans that some places were not meant to be crossed. Taram in this form does not stay by the hearth. He haunts thresholds, mountain passes, forest edges, abandoned fields, unused doorways, empty barns, the space beneath floorboards, and the darkness behind the lintel of a home. He is the spirit who reminds you, you are stepping between two worlds. He is not evil, but he is not safe. Many Vainakh tales describe Taram in ways that reflect a guardian, but also a judge. In older Ingush and Chechen traditions, the world is divided between the realm of fire, the human world of warmth, people, animals, and memory, and the realm of frost and stone, the land of mountain spirits, wandering dead, demons, and the unknown. Taram moves between them. Some stories say he appears as a tall shadow standing in the doorway, a figure with no face, only the outline of shoulders, a dark mass perched in rafters, a shape sitting near the threshold of a barn, or even a warm hand on the back during a dangerous journey. Not to harm you, but to warn you. One Ingush shepherd's tale tells of a man traveling across a mountain pass at night. He felt a presence behind him, something tall, silent, not quite human. Every time he tried to step toward the cliff edge, that presence stood directly in front of him, blocking his path. One step too far, and the snow covering the ledge would have broken beneath him. It was Taram, not a haunting, a protection. But in other stories, Taram punishes neglect. A Chechen woman once refused to acknowledge the spirit of her ancestors in her home. She mocked old traditions, laughed off the idea of house spirits, ignored the hearth rituals that her people had honored for centuries. After that night, she heard knocking in the walls, a weight on her chest as she slept, footsteps circling her bed, and one morning, the family bread, a sacred symbol in Vainakh culture, was found scattered on the floor. Her grandmother whispered, "The Taram is reminding you who is older than you." These tales shape Vainakh understanding of spirits. Protective, yes, but only if you uphold your side of the relationship. Folklore offers clear signs of when Taram is near, some comforting, some not. The hearth fire burns more steadily than usual. A warm hand presses lightly between the shoulder blades. A child reports seeing a tall person near the doorframe, but feels no fear. Animals rest calmly, especially dogs, who were believed to perceive spirits first. These were seen as blessings, the spirit acknowledging a well-kept, respectable home. Signs of warning included bread falling or cracking unexpectedly, a sudden cold draft in a perfectly sealed house, a figure glimpsed in a doorway, gone when you look again, a whisper or sigh near the hearth when no one is there, someone feeling watched only when they cross the threshold. Thresholds, doorways, barn entrances, gates were spiritually potent. They marked the divide between the safe inner world and the dangerous outer world. So when Taram lingered there, it meant he was guarding against something, or waiting for you to recognize him. His signs of anger were rare but chilling in folklore. Objects falling from high places with no cause, livestock refusing to enter barns, sleep paralysis accompanied by a shadow sitting on the stomach, a sudden crack in the hearthstones, the sound of footsteps pacing in empty rooms. These were direct warnings. A spirit guardian who had been neglected or disrespected. Vainakh elders believed that if you listened carefully, Taram never attacked without warning, but he could withdraw his protection, and that was worse than any haunting. With the rise of Islam in Chechnya and Gushita, many older animist traditions faded or evolved, but unlike certain spirits, which were demonized, forgotten, or reinterpreted, Taram remained. Why is that? Because the idea of a guardian of the home and threshold transcends religion. It is universal. Modern Vainakh families may not perform elaborate rituals, but the respect remains. Do not curse near the hearth. Do not slam doors at night. Do not leave bread on the floor. And do not shout at the threshold. These are holdovers from a world where spirits stood quietly in doorways, unseen but ever present. In rural homes, it's still said, if something moves in the corner of your eye near the door, be respectful. Someone older than you is watching. Taram lives on because the concept still resonates. A presence that watches, warns, and guards. A spirit who blurs the line between the past and the present, between the wild and the domestic, between humanity and the unseen. Tonight we have walked through the two faces of Taram, the gentle hearth guardian who protects the home, and the shadowed watcher at thresholds who stands between you and the dangerous unknown. Together they form a single truth. The world is full of borders, not just physical, but spiritual, and something ancient stands guard at those borders still. You just have to pay attention. Thank you for joining me on the More Twitch podcast. Please like and subscribe and rate. If you'd like to follow me on TikTok and YouTube for more content. Stay strange, stay spooky, and remember, the shadows are always watching.